Hey everybody, in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a breakdown for how I created a 30-second video commercial for a product that I've been developing with a client partner. We are developing an AI tool to help coach real estate agents in real time on calls, to helping them book more appointments. We had an urgency to turn this commercial around in just a few days because the product is about ready to come out of the wait list, and we wanted to put together something that was a little bit more visually compelling that shared the message of the problem that we're solving and the solution of where agents can go to sign up to learn more, to get started for free. And I'm going to show you the commercial first, and I'm going to walk you through the full breakdown of how I produce this through the creative process and the tools that we use to tie it all together. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The commercial itself, in its final form that we exported the files from, was in Descript. So I'm just going to play the commercial in Descript.
Real estate agents, you're sitting on money in your CRM, but you burn that money when calls don't turn into meetings. You need more conversations that become appointments, but in the moment, it's hard to know what to say. And when the call ends, you're like, damn, I could have had it. SideHustle fixes that. It gives you live prompts during calls so you can book meetings right away. Fast coaching, clear guidance, day one appointments, even for new agents. Stop burning leads and start booking more meetings. Try SideHustle at AskSideHustle.com.
And then it stays on this slide for the next 30 seconds so people have time to go to the website and scan. But that is the 30-second commercial spot for Ask Say So, helping real estate agents book more meetings. But how did we get here? Basically, this process started with a conversation between my client and I in Slack. Was we made a pivot towards the real estate market and needed to create some new assets for it. And so our conversations in Slack consist of screenshots and voice notes. And so I opened up a Claude thread to start this whole process to build the context of everything that we're creating here. And so what you'll see in this screen, I'm not going to share this entire thread. You're not going to be able to read it all because it's a lot of information. But some of our initial context basically was saying like, hey, is there any way to create a video, a pitch video that we could use to demo what this tool is for? And then once we have the video demos from the actual software, we will be overlaying those into parts of this commercial. So that'll be a very easy addition to update. Basically, the value proposition around the commercial was that real estate agents will lose commissions because they're not making calls. They don't know what to say. Say so is going to be guiding agents and on demand without needing to bring in like the human coach, like real time and on the follow up side of things. So, all of that said, this entire thread was started by me inside of Claude because I believe that Claude is one of the best uses for writing out scripts. I find that Claude is really effective with that. So we started with taking this initial context, taking some screenshots, and then working through a lot of different prompts and iterations to create basically a storyboard that we could follow and map out what is the story going to be following the core value proposition and what we want to articulate in under 60 seconds. And we ultimately ended up getting it under 30 seconds or right at 30 seconds. And so what Claude and I did during this process was to come through mapping out the script and coming up with different versions of the prompts that we could ultimately take, refine, and then give to the next step in this process, which would be running them through Gamma Studio. And again, there's a lot of context in here, but you can see I'm just going to scroll through and talk. There was a lot of iterations, a lot of back and forth, a lot of refining based on what the prompts were giving me. And then what I was doing in tandem with coming through these prompts inside of Gamma. So I'm going to go back here to Gamma. This is the end Gamma that we ended up generating the slides through. This wasn't without it going through multiple iterations first. And so you could see these are some older ones, but this was last week when we got started with this process. There's a bunch of iterations on the design, the style, based on the feedback. It was very much having conversations with my client, getting through some of the initial slides and demonstrations first to make sure that we were on the same page with exactly what we wanted to see visually the animations look like. And so I'm going to scroll way back down here through here because Claude was basically giving like a full frame by frame breakdown. And then we were creating prompts to complement each one of the frames, which then we were tightening up the actual sales script that my partner was speaking. And then I took that script and ran it through Descript and his voiceover to create and tie everything together inside of Descript. More on that in just a bit. The main thing that I want to share here in terms of documenting this process is how many iterations what happened inside of Claude to get to a final series of like the production notes for kind of that cartoon superhero style, content brief, custom art style, that sort of thing. So once this is where we start to get into some more things. So basically coming through this entire process for all of the slides, all the prompts for all of the slides, coming down to a style guide. And then I thought it would be cool to have some music that also kicked in, which you heard kind of in the at the part where Say So gets introduced right here.
Say So fixes that. It gives you
You can hear the music in the background to kind of pick up the energy a bit. And so I took this prompt as well, and then I created some music with this prompt using Suno AI. And so you can see these two songs. I think this was the one that we ended up choosing. But basically, inside of Suno, this is just in tandem with going through the other parts of the creative process. If you open this in editor, let me see. That's not going to be it. This isn't going to be like a Suno breakdown for how to create stuff in Suno, but it's pretty straightforward once you get going. So basically, I gave this prompt to Suno's song description, made it an instrumental, and then generated the theme music for it. And I have a license with Suno, so just made an AI song. And so from that point, coming back into the explainer video, breaking it down towards the agent, and all of this said and done, a lot of stuff, we come to our final slide creation part of things. And so here's where we take this context and bring it into Gamma. And you saw that there was a bunch of different iterations of this, with this being the winner right here. So this one ended up being the final one that was the best out of all the ones we generated. And all of this context was generated from setting up the stage. I'm going to go back to my source prompts in Gamma where things were added in. So basically inside of Gamma, you can go to a Gamma studio, which means that once you're in Gamma, and when you're in Gamma and you go to generate Gamma, you would go to create new, and then you would select studio, and then that's going to take you to this place. So studio is great because you can tap into their image models and create far more like visually based themes versus some of the stuff that looks like you're like more of a slide interactions with Gamma and editing words and things like that. But I pasted in these storyboard slides as the initial context. And then that generated this outline. And a key point here with this outline is Gamma will usually take, right now, they'll take all of this content, let's say 20 slides worth of context that we're putting in here, and then it'll create an outline, but then it'll create like kind of the title outline and then agent with this thing right here. And it usually will stop at like a bullet point for context. And what I found is that can throttle the creative direction of a prompt a little bit more than ideal from running this a bunch of times. What I wanted to do with this last one, and I got a much better result from the outputs and images, is once it generated this outline, so it generated a 20 slide outline right here, you can see, I then went back and copied and pasted the exact prompts that were part of this visual prompt style guide too. And so it took me not that much longer, but it did take some time to copy and paste those into each one of these to just set it up to where these were really fully fleshed out and super, super specific. And I would recommend if you're doing this and you need hyper specific details on any specific slides, that making sure that your outline actually has everything that you want it to have there as well, because this is where the detail and the setting up of a prompt is going to pay off more in the end. And if you're doing this for other things like other visual stuff, or if you're doing social media content in different styles and you want to have the same type of image but different copy variations, this is what you're going to want to make sure has those copy variations on it for those marketers out there. But then we get that slide outline generated. We get the text comment. I went for just vibes. That's going to do minimal text versus tons of text. And then we selected the theme, which was a custom theme that we built that has all of the Say So brand style guides, colors, themes. So the vibe is like on point with the color palette. And then from there, we use the AI image model to generate it. And so you'll notice here we've got auto select, which is just going to auto select and generate, and that's fine to do. But and this is brand new. This, I didn't even see this beforehand. Nano Banana Pro HD, right? That wasn't there even 3 days ago when I was making this, but I was using Nano Banana Pro. They have the discounted pricing on it. So just be aware of, if I do this, it'll be 200 credits, which is 27% of my balance. Just be aware because you can burn through a lot of credits depending on what image model you choose. But then we have the custom art style prompt. You have your what basic ones that Gamma will give you here, but then you have the custom art style prompt, which is what I went through and built out using the Claude thread to create that style prompt and really lock it in. But that is now here. And so this style prompt is going to apply to all of the different slides that we've given it alongside the theme and all of those different elements that we've created. And what happens, I'm not going to click generate right now because I've already created it. I don't need to make a new one. But what happens is you click generate and then it produces this output right here, which I can then go and modify even more. And so from this point, basically what I'm wanting to do is make sure that all of these images are moving through and that follow the story that we're trying to tell. And they were. But you notice some of these I've duplicated it and I've edited things here. And that's an important thing with Gamma. So once you generate the image first, sometimes you might want to edit additional things on top of this image. And so what I did with this is I just copied and cloned this slide on the left. You can see slide 8. I just made a new one, slide 9. But what I did here is I cloned it and then I asked the agent, which is Gamma's AI agent, that if you click this, it'll open up a box. I'll say, hey, inside of the little chat bubble, write this is say so. And this is from feedback from my client to say, hey, could we add something in here? Could we do this? Could we do that? And I would come back through and modify the slides in this sense so that we would edit everything. And another one, because what I did was initially set up all of these slides, share, and then export all these slides as PNGs. And once those slides are exported as PNGs, we went into a Descript project and uploaded all of them inside the project. So the project had a bunch of files that we could access. As you can see on the right-hand side, all of these different files are all the different images from our Gamma that we exported. But an important note when you're going into Descript to start and actually tie all these pieces together is I wanted to layer those on top of the actual voiceover from my client. And so when you're scrolling all the way to the beginning of this project inside of
Real
Descript,
estate agents.
I've had my client submit a voice note of the actual script, just with the Slack note that I uploaded inside of the Descript file. So when I added the voice note into the file, Descript transcribed it. And so you can see the word by word count, and I could edit the words. I could do a lot of editing and things like that here inside of Descript. But one thing I do like about Descript in this sense is when I go to AI tools, you can select studio sound, which means that when you select studio sound, it'll allow you to provide a studio sound filter and then vary the intensity. So it'll actually clean up and tighten up the voice that will make it cut out some background noise and tighten it up overall to be a little bit more studio quality. And so that's what we did from the Slack note. So I added the voiceover right here. And then I started to just, and this was more of where the kind of like the refining and dialing things in. I would switch all of the images onto the timeline. And then based on the cadence of when the voice was changing, you can make it smaller, you can make it bigger.
Real estate agents. You're sitting on money in
Slide
your CRM,
change.
but you burn that money.
And so you can modify where the images show up, where the slides transition. And after a few iterations of this, we ended up removing a few different slides, combining a few different slides. And you notice the transition from here to here, adding in
It gives you live prompts during calls.
so you have the music that comes in during this, kind of starts to swell with the rest of the video. And we've got, again, different images, all of this stuff. For some of the things like this image, it was a little bit out of the capabilities of Gamma to do that image. And so this one started out here. But some of the feedback from a client was that there was just a little too many slides inside the video. And so we combined a few. So I exported this video into Canva, removed the background. Or actually, first thing I did, I exported that video, that image, and then I uploaded it into Gemini so I could use Google Gemini. And then I had it just remove that background image. And I was having a hard time getting it to actually just be totally full. So I took the one that removed the background image added it into Canva, and then created the rest of that slide there. And so we have the final slide right here for the video. And because Gemini is really good at doing really specific edits, but sometimes it still doesn't quite do exactly what I was looking for it to do. And so I just used Gamma to make that final version and then uploaded that PNG directly into the video in Descript. So with all of that said, we now have inside of Descript the voiceover. We have the theme music that comes in at around the 13-second mark. And then we have all of the different slides that capture each one of the frames that we created, matching that kind of stick figure plus superhero style and wrapping things up. And this last slide, Gamma made it. So there might have been one other Gamma that I generated that actually had the image that I'm showing you right here, because we did make a few other versions. And so I pulled this one from one of the other generations. And then I just added in a QR code that's going to scan directly to Ask Say So onto this image. So just a little bit of graphic editing and designing inside of Descript. And once all of these layers are set up and the entire thing is in place, it's simply a matter of downloading it or uploading it to YouTube, for example, to get out there on the YouTube channel. Then we took this video, added it onto YouTube, and then it is now live on the website. So you have the Say So website, you have the headline, subheadline, opt-in right here to join the wait list, and then we have the video that everyone can watch and see once they hit the website. This website was built inside of Lovable, and so we can do all sorts of edits to it from Lovable. To wrap things up, in summary, extracted the idea for the context that we were going to build all the creative direction around and the script writing and the style guide, custom art prompt, etc. from Slack, and then started a Claude thread so the context all remained aligned inside of Claude, created a lot of different prompts for that, used Gamma and their Studio to take the final VSL slide storyboard using Studio to create all the outline, refine that outline, build it out for the full breakdown of the outline, selected just vibes, chose the custom theme, which I'd highly recommend spending time to develop if you haven't inside of Gamma. So it applies to all your projects, created the custom art style prompt, and then that created a number of different presentations. This was the best overall one, but we took a few pieces from a few of the other ones, tied them all together, exported all the themes, uploaded the voiceover and all the presentation slides and the theme song that we generated inside of Suno, and built that out inside of Descript. And then inside of Descript, once all the flow and everything was locked in after several rounds of iterations, went ahead and exported that and uploaded it to YouTube. And now it lives on the site. I hope you find that breakdown useful, how you can tie all these tools together. Not to forget to mention that we use Gemini to edit some very specific video images. You can also give it really specific style guides for how you want to combine images, and it would do that. All in all, use a handful of tools to tie everything together and ultimately create a finished 30-second video sales letter for people that are going to be coming and learning more about this particular product and business, and to start to sign up and join the wait list. So hope you found that useful. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Good luck, y'all.